Okay, now we're going to talk about fiber connectors. Um, Run back through here. So, fiber optic. Let's. The parts of fiber, and I'm going to go back to the book here. If I can scroll up. All right. Almost. There's the different fiber connectors. There's a piece of fiber. All right. So this, we got Kevlar, this yellow around here that's wrapped in to protect the individual fibers. These fibers are exceptionally small. I've got some examples in the lab normally that I hand around, but this individual strand here is usually a little thicker than a human hair. This wrap and the whole thing comes out. It's can be somewhat sizable, but we've got a core. We've got a core and a cladding, two different levels of the inside of this, and then a jacket, and then the Kevlar, and then the outside casing. The casing is usually, depending, yellow or orange, typically, so that it stands out against Cat 5. So this used to be glass fibers. Now it's a poly fiber. Typically, it's a poly fiber. A little more robust. We used to have issues with terminating it because it used to be glass, and it was really expensive, and then everything was pretty brittle, so the newer cables are actually pretty in fact, I've got the only example of fiber is one that I have here. I'm going to unbag it here while we're talking about things just to show you real quick. Pretty small. So reliably transmitting data rates of 100 gig per channel. We're using light pulses. We're not using a magnetic field, and so we don't have to worry about EMI or RFI. So I could strap this to a high-powered cable. Mattoon at one point leased out space in the sewer and consolidated ran their fiber lines inside the sewer lines because it didn't. We used to joke that made for a really crappy internet connection, but it doesn't. It has nothing to do with that. And our fiber lines can be exceptionally long, so they don't have to be. We don't have to have 328 feet. We can have 2 kilometers is usually the longest standard that we have. We'll talk about that when we get back to the notes. Okay, connectors. Oh, one other thing. I'm not an expert in fiber. We don't use fiber very often. In all of my consulting that I've done since I've been doing this, I have not done anything with fiber. I've done very little with Lakeland. We have fiber between the but actually, I think between the buildings, I think originally we used to have copper between the buildings, but I think all of our inter-building links now are fiber, and like the link going out to the west building from main campus is fiber. But it's for us in a LAN environment, and this is a LAN networking class, fiber is kind of right on the edge. It's something you're probably not going to do very much, and so it's not a very big portion of the class, and I have way more examples in the classroom than I have here, so I'm kind of at a disadvantage. Because I have basically one of every type of cable that I can pass around and show you, but as I said, I've only got one at the moment. So we are going to talk about 4 different cable types: the SC, which is what I have, subscriber standard connector; the ST straight tip, the local connector, and the MTRJ. And we can see the SC, which is the same thing. If you look at that, we can see on the dot cam. Let me open it up. So really, really, really fine cable compared to what our Cat 5 cable was. So you'd see, and this is just a standard, well, I guess the one that I terminated last time was there. So you can see it's considerably smaller, and a lot of this is the casing too. It's not, I mean, the fiber line inside. I should cut it and strip it apart, but I'm not going to because this is a brand new cable. But anyway, the end comes off, and then that is actually what seats inside. And on this, we would also have an inbound and an outbound. So if you were connecting between buildings, these would be one way. So you'd have, when you connect them, I had one of my, and again, this is not something that we typically concentrate on because it's not beyond the scope of this class, but it's at the edge of the class. And we just don't have a lot of experience with it because we don't have fiber. I was going to do a fiber link from my lab to the data center, and I forget how many thousands of dollars that was going to cost. It wasn't really going to help us out, so I didn't do it. But one of my grads said, hey, we had a problem. He worked at one of the smaller hospitals, and was doing something with fiber connection. He unplugged 2 lines, and when he plugged them back in, he said it wasn't 3 to 5 minutes, and just all hell broke loose. People started calling and saying that the internet was down. When he unplugged them and he plugged them back in, he had flipped them, and so it was had to go transmit to receive, and transmit coming back to receive, and he had flipped them, so they were talking transmit to transmit, receive to receive. It was the same exact thing we just talked about when we were talking about crossover cables in the last section. But basically he'd done that, and so one whole wing of the hospital had gone down. So the downside to this is you'll have 2 different cables that you'll have to make sure that, because they're each one way. But anyway, that's what the standard or subscriber connector looks like. This is straight tip. This has essentially a BNC connector on it, and so it goes in and then clicks and locks, so that part's nice. The LC local connector actually has what looks like an RJ45 clip on it, and so there's some advantages to that. The STO, in the early days, we only had 2. We had SC and ST, and I got them confused, and so and I don't have the other receiver part, but we can see on the screen here, when you push this in, there is a click, C for click, and the ST we had to push in, and like a BNC connector we had to twist. So we called them twist and click for ST and SC, and that's how you remembered which one was which, because like on the A+, they would show you a picture of this and you'd have to know what type of cable it is. Oh, it's a twist, it's the ST. Now then we added the LC, which is kind of I remembered as just a mini RJ45, and then the MTRJ, which actually it has 2 different cables. So this is nice because the transmit and the receive pair are actually in there, and instead of having 2 of these larger connectors, you actually have 1 pair there, so when it plugs in, it automatically has both wires and you don't have to worry about it. So personally, I think the mechanical transfer registered jack connector is easier because it takes up less space in the cabinet, and it only goes in one way. It's keyed, so you can't plug it in upside down, you can't get it switched, and when you make a connection, you're going to get a full connection like we're used to with a Cat5 cable. Okay, I normally don't use, we had talked about Professor Messer. I normally don't use Professor Messer. I guess I could. I wouldn't even have to do any of these lectures. I could just use his stuff because his stuff is all really good. But we're going to, because I can't show you all of the fiber connectors, all of his stuff really is good. And I think I just flipped right past fiber. Here, I have the ability to search. Let's do it. Okay, so there's optical fiber and optical fiber connectors. We'll just watch both of these. Ooh, I don't know that I have. Do I have that? I'll have to put on my headphones. Every time I reboot, I'm in OBS Studio, and every time I reboot, it messes things up. So we may not be able to hear this. Okay. So I'll put these links in, but these are nice videos. So it's showing a pair there of LCs, it looks like. So talks about cable. I'm just going to steal his images there. We talked about the core and the cladding. This is actually looks like multi-mode fiber. So we have single mode fiber, which is a single communication line going. Multi-mode fiber has a bigger core, and it actually can carry multiple conversations at the same time. There's the core and the ferrule. So we got some really good. Okay, so here he's talking about multi-mode fiber, and then long range single mode fiber. So here we've got up to 100 kilometers on single mode fiber, and multi-mode fiber we got up to 2 kilometers, which is what I said was the standard. So 2 kilometers is a long way, 2,000 meters. So you know, you're going to get a lot more distance than you would on my. I'm not getting any audio at all. Why am I not getting any audio? There's my desktop audio. Why am I not getting audio? Hang on.